The biggest and most sustainable crypto gaming release is about to happen very soon, and who can tell better about it than the actual co-founder of Illuvium? Kieran, welcome to the channel. It's an honor to have you here. Can you? Everybody knows Illuvium, but can you, in your own words, describe what is Illuvium? Because you are building multiple games. How can you describe it in your own words?
So it's an interoperable blockchain universe of games, right? Which basically means there's three games that we're building simultaneously and have been for the last 3.5 years. Illuvium Zero is a mobile-friendly city builder game. That's where players who own land will actually generate fuel. That fuel is used across the entire ecosystem. Our second game is probably our marquee game, our biggest, the one that's had the most registrations. That is Overworld.
Yeah.
Overworld is the one that's got the 200 3D creatures that are all unique, and there's 7 different regions. There's a whole bunch of like the whole storyline of what is Illuvium and what does a ranger do when you crash land on this mysterious planet. All of that is uncovered as you travel through the overworld, and those creatures that you're collecting are basically your access pass to any additional games that we create in the universe. The third game is the first game to utilize those creatures, and it's very similar if you're familiar with Teamfight Tactics, which is a game from Riot. Highly popular. There's like 30 million people that play on a monthly basis, where you have two teams that go up against each other and you battle it out, and there's different classes and affinities, and you've got to basically merge them all together into one powerful team. And PvP, the best player wins. And so it's kind of this amalgamation of all of these different genres in the utilizing the same IP and the same assets throughout them. And going to go live all at the same time. So it should be a lot of fun.
Super exciting. People have been talking about Illuvium for such a long time, and it was so anticipated before it even came out. I don't know, the marketing was also really on point, but do you plan that? Because I know that the best projects, they tend to release around the halving, right? You have a great timing, but the overworld gameplay was already there for a long time. For example, was it already done for a while, and did you on purpose wait for it until you got the right moment, or do you just feel like, okay, no, now it's done and now we're gonna release?
No, so it definitely wasn't planned for us to continue building throughout the bear market and then launch it all right at the perfect timing. It's just super lucky that the chips have fallen that way. We were intent. The scope has gotten a lot bigger over time, and so the intention early on was to get out as soon as possible, even while there was still hype in the market back in like 2022, and things just took longer than we thought. We were a brand new studio. We had no members of the team back in 2020, and then we fast forward to now and we've got 130 people in the DAO. There's, tons and tons of people that are working on this project full time. And so, it just, I guess we learned the hard way that it takes a lot longer to build a AAA game, let alone 3 AAA games that are all interconnected and on chain.
Yeah, that seems like a pain in the ass, but you're really doing it. I think that Overworld has the most eyes on it. Is that also what you're most excited about, or do you feel like, no, it's everything that's coming together which is the most exciting?
I've always been, I have a certain affinity to Pokemon and creature capture games. I've always loved that genre.
Yeah.
When you add the excitement of actually owning the characters and being able to go onto a marketplace and immediately, start trading those assets. It's like a Pokemon on steroids. And so then when we saw the success of Power World more recently, earlier this year, it sort of cemented my thoughts that this genre is one of the most exciting in all of gaming. And I think, as I said, adding the ownership side of things only makes it stronger. And so, yeah, I'm super excited about that. But also, I can say the same about Zero and the fact that people are going to be generating fuel. They've got to decide. It's a free market where they decide, like, when do I sell that fuel to someone? What price do I sell that fuel to someone? And so you've got some really cool intereconomics where, there's agency on those players to say, like, okay, it's a bit of a financial game. Do I wait when the demand is really high and there's tons of people going into the overworld, or maybe I just want to quickly sell it and get as much out as I can so I can make my return on investment. So there's that dynamic. And then the game that I played casually the most over the last sort of like 5 or 6 years is Teamfight Tactics. So the idea of the arena as a more casual game for me to play, to just have raw fun, not worry about the finance and like making money from collecting characters, is definitely, another thing that I'm really excited about. You mash it all together and it's this one big launch, it should be phenomenal.
Yes, I am super excited about that as well. It's like I saw Overworld and I always thought, like, yeah, of course you are going to compare it a little bit with Pokemon, but I also see kind of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot vibes in it. If you mix those two together, and then you get Overworld, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
It's done beautiful, but it takes so long to build such a game, indeed. And you have seen many games come into the crypto space in the meantime, I think. Were you like studying them as well? Like if we, for example, take a look at Axie, which is kind of the blue chip gaming project, absolutely not comparable to Illuvium, but of course they also have certain economics. Did you also look at that and be like, okay, we have to do certain things different?
Yeah, so we took a lot of learnings from the economics of Axie. There isn't really any game out there that's the same quality. Certainly not Overworld level of polish. So we're pretty zoned in on what we're building in terms of like the lore, the storyline, the characters, the graphics. That we really want to be in a league of our own. But in terms of the economics, that's a very critical factor. And so we looked at all the pain points and all the blockages and like the inflation of assets and their native token inside of Axie. And we thought, okay, how do we actually build we love this concept and this idea, but how do we build mechanics into our tokenomics to ensure that the NFTs are deflationary over time, and how do we make it so they're harder to capture over time? How do we make it so if you miss out on a set, you'll never be able to capture those alluvials again? How do we create additional utility in perpetuity? So like things like you might play Arena for 4 or 5 years, and then you think, and to do that, maybe you went onto the marketplace, you bought a whole bunch of alluvials to create a good team, and you played Arena, you had a heap of fun, but then you kind of were like, you know what, I'm over this game now. Then 3 years later, we come out with a new game. Maybe it's a dungeon crawler or an RTS or a Mario Kart style game. And all of a sudden, those assets that you had, which would normally sit dormant on a developer's server, if we're talking a mainstream game, in our case, you've actually got ownership over that asset. And all of a sudden, this new game launches. Not only do you have the required assets to go and play that game. You don't need to fork out any additional money. But because you were playing Illuvium so early, it's likely that you've got assets that no one else has, or a very small subset of people have. And so when these new games start launching and you get a whole new genre of people that love playing these games, they only have access to the characters that are in Overworld in that set. Now, you might have done all your capturing in set 1 and 2, which has completely different alluvials to what set 7 does, 7 years down the track. And so all of a sudden these players are like, whoa, what's this guy got? He's got some crazy racer that I've never seen before. The dude must be like 65 years old. Like, how does he have those? And then you think, well, I want that, right? Like, I'm a young guy. My dad gave me a whole bunch of money. I'm going to go and buy it off you. And then you've got something which typically would just dwindle down in value over time. And all of a sudden, because there's so much active utility there, someone wants that. And therefore, the value of that asset is either, stable or at least increases over time, which is, how fun is that, right? Like, that's never happened inside of a game before.
And that's a beautiful thing about crypto. Now the focus is really becoming ownership, right? And I think you as Illuvium are the master of ownership, actually. And that makes it a lot more sustainable as well. Because, of course, like, there could be a great game in crypto, but at a certain point, people don't have a really great attention span these days.
Mm-hmm.
And the game might still be fun, but people want to move over. And looks like you really thought about it. Like, okay, people might get bored of maybe Overworld, but then we have something else for them, and the assets are still valuable in there. So that makes it super sustainable the way you do it. I kind of like that. Is there are there? You don't have to tell me what if yes, but are there any specific plans on any other future games within the Illuvium ecosystem? Have you already made some blueprints about that or ideas, or do you now first focus on what's coming next quarter?
So we're very laser focused on delivering the 3 games that we have now. But what we've said, Aaron and myself, he's my brother and co-founder, is we want to develop games that have a bunch of nostalgia for us, right? Like where we played when we were young and we got addicted to them, and it was, just awesome amounts of fun. That is that's exciting for us. But also there's going to be a sprinkling of what the team wants to do. That's a very important part, and there's a bunch of really smart people in the team that we'll be talking to and discussing, like, what do you think is next, and already have. And then we're also fully decentralized. So any new games that we build will have to go through the council that is voted in by all of the token holders. And so we put out a blueprint which has like 5 or 6 new games that we would like to build, but we're only a small proponent of that decision making. And so, it's really up to the community. Whatever they want us to build next will be what we build next.
Yeah. That's smart. And how do you think about mobile? Because you said there's one game that's really mobile friendly. Is that really easy to connect to Overworld, for example?
Overworld's tough. There will be a very call it a shortened version of Overworld where you can basically automate the interactions. Like, Overworld is all about going into it, traveling around, collecting, and you'll be able to do that on mobile without actually traveling into the overworld. So it's more like purchasing a travel, and then whatever you might pick up, you pick up. It obviously won't be as efficient as if you do it yourself. So there is a bit of a penalty there to automating it. But that will be available on mobile as soon as we can. And then the arena, which is that casual PvP battler that I was talking about, that definitely we're trying to get that ported onto mobile as soon as possible.
Yeah, because I always think like, okay, mobile, it's so accessible. I just grab my phone and I can play a game, and it's just like maybe a hack or a cheat in crypto to make a good mobile game, because there's not much. What do you get inspired by when building Illuvium, within or without crypto? Are there,
Mainstream games.
sorry,
Mainstream games.
mainstream games?
Yeah, there's not too many crypto games that I've seen yet. There's a lot that are building, which I'm really, really excited about. I think they'll have awesome gameplay. But out now, there isn't really anything where we turn around and go, wow, let's build something like that.
No.
We're really trying to blaze that path ourselves. But the accessibility with mobile when it comes to crypto, particularly those like crypto native people that are playing these play to earn games, 95% of them only have a mobile that they can play these games on. They might have a desktop, but it also needs to be good enough to power the games that we're building. And obviously we've gone out with extremely high fidelity graphics, which is going to require a lot more computing power and graphics power than, you know, a lot of the other games out there. So having a lower spec version that's accessible on mobile is beyond critical.
Yeah, it's kind of like the flight simulator of crypto, if you put it like that. Yeah, it has to be accessible, of course. And is it like you obviously thought about that? How are you gonna get Web 2 players into Web 3? I think that on at the Illuvium office, that's being a big discussion. I can imagine, at least. Is there a certain way on doing that?
So, I mean, look, the first thing is, and I think what I've realized over the last few years is we are very, very early. So there is still a negative connotation around NFTs and crypto gaming in general. And so I think it's more a game of time and waiting and working out when is the optimal time to start really going hard at mainstream. We obviously have a big advantage over most crypto games in that the quality that people see is no different to what you would with a mainstream game, right? Like the thing that is a bit of an eyesore is when you first go into a crypto game, you're kind of like, ooh, whoa, have I gone back in time here? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah,
And then
it's a 10
you'll have
years
to
time difference. Yeah.
you have to jump through 50 hoops to onboard, and they want you to start transferring money over, and you've got to have a wallet, and like all of these barriers to entry we've thought about, and they don't exist for us, right? Like you can literally play our games for free without a wallet, not even knowing that you're playing a crypto game. And obviously we make it easy to transfer over and become, you know, if you go and capture something and we're storing that in a custodial wallet for you, and someone goes, hey, by the way, you know, you've got a Ramfire in your wallet. Like, did you know how valuable that thing is? That a Ramfire is one of our highest tiered character. And they're like, what? No, like I didn't know that was valuable. And the guy's like, dude, look on the marketplace. That thing's worth like $5,000. Like, are you kidding me? Like you've hit the jackpot there. That can be a situation that happens with our games. And so I think it needs to be a gradual thing that occurs over time, but also we will be positioned to do it, right? Like we've already got major partnerships with esports teams to run very, very large scale tournaments. That's the other advantage of having crypto. Instead of us needing to spend $50 million on marketing, we literally have $150 million put aside for of ILV tokens, which can be used for any sort of like in-game incentive, any sort of tournaments. And so when you think about these like large scale Dota tournaments, which bring in, you know, tens of millions of players, we'll be able to do that sort of thing regularly. And that should be enough to make people, that coupled with a good looking game and fun gameplay, that's enough for someone to be like, you know what? Like, I know all my buddies are saying crypto's shit and these games are terrible and we shouldn't play it, but like, there's $1 million prize on the table over here and the game doesn't look bad, so I'm going to give it a go, you know? And then maybe you don't get everyone, but you get a certain subset and you keep on doing that over time. And eventually the mainstream adoption is inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, the best marketing is a good product.
Without a doubt. 100%.
And I think that even without the product already being out, people saw it, and that was what made Illuvium already going mainstream within crypto.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited for what's about to drop. But you also spoke about fuel. That's what you can use in all the different games. What is fuel actually? Can you explain a little bit? Is it some kind of extra in-game token, or how do I have to look at it like that?
Yeah, so they're the in-game token. So there's two ways that you can acquire it. You can generate fuel if you own a land plot, and basically you build up your industrial city. That city will produce fuel for you, and then you can take that fuel and start using it in the overworld to go travel to regions, to capture alluvials, to fuse alluvials together to make more powerful versions. There's a whole bunch of interactions that you use fuel for, or maybe you just want to be a land baron, right? And you've gone out and you've bought 100 land plots, and you know that there's going to be demand, and the only way for people to play the overworld and capture these creatures is if they buy your fuel, right? And that's where it gets cool, because you choose the price that you want to sell that fuel. We've literally built a decentralized exchange which allows people to go and put orders in and buy orders and sell orders like Binance, right? Like, you go there and you sell your different fuel types, and so that makes it a really, really cool financial game for those that are in the Illuvium Zero ecosystem.
It's like some DeFi Kingdoms kind of thing is integrated as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's a complete ecosystem, and if everybody just uses only that to do everything, that's great. That's the biggest, at least what I don't like about crypto, as crypto is right now, it is so like hard, especially for newer people. Like you said as well, they have to put money on the CEX maybe first, and then they have to go off chain, and they have to bridge, and they have to go there, and then it's on another chain. It's like, by the time you know how it works, you already don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's what I don't really like about crypto at the moment, at least. And I'm happy that's being worked on. Is that something that you put a lot of focus on while building Illuvium as well?
Yeah, so we were going to build that infrastructure ourselves, and we decided to build on top of Immutable, which is the largest layer 2 in the space that's specifically building for games. And we were like 3 months into building our own solution, which was a non-custodial wallet where we would basically hold your NFTs, we would hold your fuel, we would hold whatever you store inside the game, and then at any time you can transfer that over with a click of a button to your own wallet, and then effectively you become a crypto user. And Immutable came to us, and I was just having a random chat, and I was like, yeah, we're building this functionality. It's kind of sucks because it's only going to be gated into our gaming ecosystem, which again, it's fine for our user experience, but if someone wants to jump from Illuvium to another game, you don't want that sort of friction. You like, if you go onto Steam and you've got a whole bunch of credits there, you don't want to have 8,000 different currencies for the different games. And so they were like, no, don't do that. We're building a product called Passport, and that's effectively your wallet solution across any game sitting on the Immutable network. And so we went, oh, sweet, we'll stop building that and we'll just integrate yours.
I don't know. It has nothing to do with this, but it sounds a lot like what Portal is building as well. Have you tried checking it out with them as well before?
No, I haven't seen. I actually looked at Portal for the first time. I've seen Portal. I've heard a lot. I think I've been on a couple of spaces with them, but I was looking at their website today, and it sounds like they're building like either a wallet solution or some sort of a gaming platform. But I'm not sure if that's their own native platform or if they're bolting that on to someone else.
Yeah.
But the thing about the infrastructure in this space is we're very, very early, right? So you almost a lot of the builders in this space have the mentality of if it doesn't exist, we've got to build it ourselves, right? And we're not
Yeah.
necessarily like obviously we speak to Immutable, they're our partners and have been for a long time. But outside of that, we're not like talking to 10, 15, 20 other games on a daily basis, like what piece of info are you building versus these other guys. And so I think there's going to be a lot of crossover, similar to how there was like 20 different ways for you to transfer money overseas, and then once PayPal became the mainstay, it sort of it starts condensing, and everyone starts migrating to one platform. I think it's going to be a very similar situation to for gaming and the infrastructure that we're building.
It's beautiful. And what's, in your opinion, the most valuable thing within the Illuvium ecosystem? Would you say like these are going to be the NFTs? This is the Illuvium token that everybody already knows about. This is the fuel because that's what you actually need in the game.
The IP. I think the thing that will resonate with people for decades to come, and is in the case of almost all successful gaming franchises, the IP, which spans across, it's very broad, it spans across everything, but the characters, the lore, the regions, the backstory, the how it all integrates together, the idea that we can go and create Netflix TV shows, movies off this. The community that we have of over 1 million people, they love these characters. And similar to how people fell in love with Pokemon and they had that psychological connection to these characters, that's what we have been working on since day one. And that allows you so much leeway when it comes to building new games. People, like, every time a Mario game comes out, or a Zelda game comes out, or a Warcraft game comes out, it doesn't matter. There's fans who are like, I'm playing it. It might get the worst reviews in the world, but they're playing it, right? And so I'm not sitting here saying, hey, we're going to build an IP that's so good, which gives us an excuse to be lazy and build shitty games, but it makes adoption for whatever that new game is so much easier. And that ties into the token, right? There's only ever going to be 10 million ILV tokens. That token is what governs the entire Illuvium ecosystem. So when we end up with 10, 15, 20 games inside this ecosystem that are all generating revenue, all of that revenue goes back to the people. 100% of those in-game revenues goes back to the people that are staked in the protocol. And to stake, you need ILV. So, the IP and the token, I think, are the most valuable things.
Makes sense. Yeah, and the beautiful thing is, like, again, you can always also go with the next hype, since you are having a complete ecosystem. I mean, maybe in the future there will be pixel games or anything like that. That's so cool about it. Yeah.
There's so much opportunity. I've got a mouse pad here that one of our concept artists made that is all 8-bit characters, like 200 of our characters in 8-bit. And you think, like, what could you do with that? Like a little Royal Rumble game or whatever. And because again, you learn what these characters are like. Are they a tanky character? Are they a rangy character? Or are they like stealth? And what's their their omega abilities. Like you learn that, and then that connection is created where it's like, I like that character because it's got a certain personality, and that sort of resonates with me. And you start putting all of this together. And if we went out and built a game that was similar to like a Tekken or a Street Fighter, I guarantee you those people who know the characters are like, yes, when's this game coming out? We love it. I wonder which characters they're going to choose to put in the game. There's only going to be 30. All of that kind of stuff is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's the emotional attachment that people have to these things, like you said, Tekken or Pokemon. Like these are, it's not going away, and they can keep on building. So I think it's very clever that you try to make the same. Indeed, do you have an estimate of how many players you will get into? I don't know, the first half a year.
Well, we have over 1 million people that have registered. I don't like making player statements, but because it's so up in the air, right? Like things can go crazy in this market, and all of a sudden your estimates are 10x off, or a bear market can come, and all of this kind of stuff. I think we will have a very decent portion of people that are willing to spend a decent amount of money on a monthly basis in our games, and that's going to sustain the free-to-play players that come in. And I think we've done a really good job of getting the community to this point, and I think there's so much excitement around our launch. When we finally put these things on chain and you can start capturing them, I think it's going to be pretty good, man.
I can only imagine. I asked it off stream, but you've been working on this for 3.5 years, and the moment is finally coming. Isn't that like, I get that that's super exciting, but do you sometimes also feel like, ugh, I hope they like it, or are you so confident about it by now that you feel like, okay, I'm fully ready to go, and this is the gonna be like my wedding day. This is gonna be the best day of my life.
Look, as I said to you before, like, I don't know. I think when you get bashed down so many times in startups, like this is not my first rodeo. I've started many projects before, and there's things like financial woes, and it's really hard to raise money to fill those gaps, or it's hard to hire people. All of these things I've sort of gone through over the last like 12 to 15 years of my life. And so I don't know, it feels like, every so often in an entrepreneur's life, you get that one project which it just feels right, the timing's right, like all of these things have aligned. And so I think, I'm pretty confident that and the reason I'm confident is I always put myself in the shoes of like, what would I want? And it's I think it's a bit of an Australian thing to be hyper realistic, not like just living in the clouds and thinking like whatever you do is going to be amazing. Like, I really put myself in the shoes, and I've said multiple times before in this project, like, that's terrible. I wouldn't want to play that, right? And we've gone through so many iterations now that I think I definitely want to play all three of these games, and I hope that resonates across with our audience. And so I'm just really optimistic, and I'm super excited, but not so much like, I mean, maybe on the day before I'm going to be like, I can't even breathe, but right now I'm laser focused.
Yeah, that's the best, of course. Because what are, in your opinion, there are quite some crypto gaming projects out there right now. What's in your opinion the biggest challenge that Web3 gaming in general has? Is that the mass adoption? Is that the ownership? Is that the quality? Well, you name it.
Yeah, there's a combination, right? It's getting the economics of the game right. That's paramount. Otherwise, if you're living off, if your gameplay is living off incentivizing your users, eventually you're going to run out of tokens to give to people. Eventually, you won't be able to mint any more NFTs, and so it's good to kickstart and boost the initial gameplay, but you really need to have a good sticky game that has a long-term vision. And again, it goes back to building IP. Like I don't think there's not many other games in this space where I can look at and say, you know what, like that's an IP that I'll buy into this game, and maybe it's not another game, maybe it's an expansion and another one and another one and another one where I feel like it's going to be around for 15, 20 years. That is what I think is quite rare in this space.
Yeah.
It'll obviously change. It's early days. We've been here for 4 years, maybe 5 for some. But I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for people, is keeping players in their ecosystem for that 10, 15, 20-year time, which I think all developers that are in gaming studios, that should be your number one goal, is to have a compelling IP that lasts forever and ever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that kind of correlates with the question I wanted to ask. Like, in a short while, the games are coming out, and then what? That's what it's all being worked towards to. What are the plans after that? Because you cannot, as a builder, you cannot sit behind or kick back and relax and stop building. Or that's, I think, if I can speak for you, not possible probably. So what are the plans whenever the games are live?
More games. You know, I actually said this to my wife the other day. I was like, do you reckon if the games if the games went live and everything was super successful, do you think I would be content, right? Like, do you think I would just sit back and say, like, yeah, we did it. We've got these 3 games. We're super successful. And she started cracking up. She was like, what are you talking? Like, not you don't have that ability in you. Like, you have to keep on doing another thing and another thing and another thing. And so for us, it's about getting to that end state of having a truly, truly interoperable universe where you can go from the overworld and start playing a cartoon racer, right? Like, you can go into like a Super Smash Brothers type game. You can go into a dungeon crawler like Diablo, or you can go into like a StarCraft style game or play tower defense. Like, I'm talking an entire ecosystem that has 12 to 15 different games over the next like 15 years. And you can play whatever genre you want, right? And the cool thing is we have the ability to build whatever, right? Like, it's not in game development. It's not like there are, I mean, to a certain extent, that there's niches where you can be like a very mobile heavy studio, or you can be high AAA graphics and storyline and stuff like that. But we're more of a generalist studio that has the ability to do pretty much anything that we want in terms of new genres. And so, you know, I think this idea of a community-driven studio that's building an IP where the community gets to say what is being built next. I think 10 years from now, when I've got a kid on the way, like, I'm thinking, like, when my child is 10 and I look back and they're like, well, why'd you build these games? And I say, we didn't decide. It was the community. They went in, they voted for it. Like, that is such a crazy new concept that I think that in itself is really, really exciting. And so, yeah, just building out more and more games, maybe some infrastructure, like maybe some DeFi applications that bolt into the ecosystem. I don't know. The thing that I love about crypto is the world is your oyster. You can build whatever
the
you
limit. Yeah. Yeah, and if you go with what the community wants, that's of course best, because these are the players. If you build what you like and nobody is playing it, like, the game is only as successful as people want to play it, actually, of course.
Yeah.
Congrats on the kid, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Apart from Illuvium, you must be really bullish on crypto gaming in general. right? You already said like we are really early right now. What is your general view on crypto gaming for now?
So when I jumped back into crypto in early 2020, I just finished up my food tech startup, which got screwed due to COVID, and restaurants were closing in Australia, and it was a really tough time. And so I begrudgingly came back to crypto because I was trading in 2016, like early days, like just when Ethereum had launched.
Yeah.
And I left the space, did my own startup, and then came back in 2020. I was looking for something to do, right? But I didn't want to do something like I didn't want to launch like a DeFi application or an NFT project or like that didn't have the ability to be something special, right? Like I'm super competitive, and I actually my main motivation was beating my brother who started Synthetics Protocol. I wanted to create a project that had a higher market cap than him. And so I knew he was like a top 30 token at this time. And so I knew that it needed to be something really good that I loved, right? That I had a lot of passion about. And I came across Axie, and I was like, what is this, right? Like, this is like, it's kind of a little bit childish, like the graphics are a little bit backward, like, but I've got to go and buy these things that are like $300 each, and it was just such a crazy concept that I was like, I need to know more. And I reckon I did like, I don't know, I was doing such crazy hours. I was doing like 16 17-hour days every single day in trading. And so when I found crypto gaming, I went deep into it, like wanted to learn everything about it. And it was a couple of weeks later, and I was calling my brother who designs games, and I was like, dude, this is it. This is going to change gaming forever. No one, once they get ownership, like think about a game of Pokemon where, or even Pokemon Go, right? Imagine if that came out with a marketplace, and if you captured something, you could sell it. No way would any of those players go back a year later when they bring out the new Pokemon version and say, yeah, we don't want ownership in this one. Like it just wouldn't exist. And I looked at that and I was like, I am the luckiest person alive. Like, how the hell have I stumbled upon this? There's like 2 games in this space. Like, we've got to build, and we've got to build quickly. And so like my conviction has not changed whatsoever.
It does seem like time is your enemy sometimes, right? I mean, is that something you struggle with? Because if you notice, like, oh, this is hot right now, yeah, you cannot just create a game in a couple of weeks, of course. So how do you make sure that you have the right momentum? Like you gave Axie as an example. I don't want to say anything bad about another project, but I do think that if Axie would have came out now, it would never been as big as it was back then. But they just had the first mover advantage, I guess. So momentum is really important. How do you manage to keep a good momentum?
So that I do really struggle with, and I've received feedback from people inside our team, mainly my brothers, that like you need to relax, like you push too hard sometimes. And yeah, I think it gets a good result, but I think at the same time it has the potential to burn people out. And you know, it's really hard. I'm a super impatient person, right? Like I want things the next day, and that was part of the reason why we were so off base when it came to saying what our launch time was. I knew that if I said, hey, we're going to launch this thing in 12 months, that the team would work crazy hours. And of course we did as well, but I think, you know, you can only do that for so long. So that's been one of the things that has been a big lesson for me over time, is to take a step back. Good things do take time, but you know, just the type of person that I am, it is a bit of a struggle. You want to get that first mover advantage. You see this opportunity, some other games launch, and you sit and you think, oh my God, what are we doing? Like, we need to get this out. Like, if anything is an issue for me, I would say that would be my number one thing that I struggle with. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems hard, like especially if you are already a little bit impulsive or impatient, then that
Mm.
but then it's good to have a complete team around you, right? They take
They
your
level me
feedback
out
right on the
without
ground.
a doubt. They tell me I'm insane and it can't be done. And then other times that, but that's the good thing, right? Like when we built 3 games in 3 years. And, if we built one game in 3 years of the quality that we have, I think we'd step back and say, wow, that's a really good achievement. And so, in being like that, I think the one advantage, and obviously there's a bunch of disadvantages, but the one advantage is, I might say 12 months, they might say 3 years. And if we end up at 24 months, it's still a year earlier than what we would have released, and everyone's happy, well, hopefully happy.
Most, yeah. Because what are you finishing right now? Like the lunch is coming. You don't have a set date for the lunch exactly, right?
No, so there's one big feature in each of the games that we're trying to finish, and not trying, we have to. I've said we literally need to get these features in, and because they take the games like that, it makes it probably like 30-40% better in each of the games, and so that's what we're working on. So we're in a crunch time, but the last 3 years has been a crunch across the entire gamut of games that we're building. So, but again, it's the finishing touches. We're integrating the blockchain, but most of that is done now. The fuel exchange is mostly done. We've done test transactions. We've minted NFTs. It's last minute polish, and then boom, we're going live.
And what do you? I don't want to make this too long. Maybe in a couple of months we can do this again, so we can have a follow up if you have the time for it at least. But how are you going to release it? Is it just by very simple, like you are doing promos right now as well, of course, to make the news come out? Is there a certain way also outside of Web3 that you feel like, hey, this is how we are gonna push the game, or do you really feel like we're just gonna push it out and let the quality speak for itself?
Of course not. There's a whole bunch of marketing initiatives that we're doing, but they're mainly focused on Web3 users. So there's a huge airdrop campaign that we'll be doing, talking millions and millions and millions of dollars that we'll be giving away for the first 6 months of gameplay across the 3 different titles. There's a launch cinematic which will go live about 3 weeks before we open things up. And then there's a whole influencer campaign where we'll activate like 200 to 300 people and start having them post beforehand. And yeah, a bunch of other stuff to really incentivize and start driving the hype. But yeah, I mean, I run the marketing. So for me, getting as much hype going as possible is absolutely critical, and then letting the gameplay do the talking, letting the earning do the talking. When when someone captures one of these creatures and it's worth $200, and they go tell their friends, "Hey, I'm playing this awesome video game. It's like a new age sci-fi Pokemon, but I just made $200." And they're like, "No, you're bullshitting." Like, but let me see it. It's like, "Here's my wallet." And they're like, "But that's not real money." And it's like, "Well, watch this." And they transfer it to USD, and then they take it out. It's like, "Well, it looks pretty real to me." So that type of stuff, I think, is also going to help.
Is the transfer from the in-game tokens to, let's say, dollars, is that been made also easy eventually for Web2 players? Like people can maybe use the in-game token to directly, I don't know, that you have some web stores connected or something that they don't even have to deal with crypto. I think that's a pretty good way to adopt Web2 players so that they don't even know that they are using something in Web3.
In the future, absolutely. But for now, there's a marketplace. So those people that are selling fuel, they sell that for ETH. So we're banking on the fact that people who go and buy a land plot are crypto natives. They understand what Ethereum is. So when they sell that fuel and they get ETH, they're happy, right? And
Yeah.
in terms of a player on the marketplace that goes and captures something that's valuable, they can list it on the marketplace. If someone buys that, they've got USDC, and they can withdraw that. But then we will be looking at, and this is where we'll lean on a lot of third-party applications, and Immutable is at the forefront of this as well. The platform that we're building on, they are looking for ways to make it as seamless as possible. So maybe there is a way to sell your crypto and it does an automatic transfer out of USDC into your native currency, and then you're literally just withdrawing it instantly back into your bank account. That's 100% something that we would look at in the future.
Yeah, I think when it comes to bringing Web 2 people to Web 3, that's actually, just to make it as seamless as possible and as easy as possible, of course. Awesome. I'm super excited. People can already sign up to get access when the game comes out.
Yeah, yep. So you can go onto the website, you can sign up. There's also Arena is a version of Arena. It's in beta still, so it doesn't have any of those updates that I was talking about, but you can go and download that on the Epic Store to get a little bit of a taste, but it is going to change quite dramatically. But yeah, in terms of the overworld, we're going to be doing a beta test on chain, but on testnet, and that's going to be very, very soon. I was actually discussing the dates earlier today. We don't have one set, but we're going to set one in the next week or so.
Is that a public beta, or do you have to get whitelisted?
No, it'll be a public beta. Yeah, we want to get as many people as possible, and that airdrop that I was talking about, that will activate for the first time in that testnet launch.
Oh, great! So it's worth it that I tell my community as well, go play the public beta as soon as it comes out.
Absolutely, get in as fast as possible.
I can honestly say that this is the first time that I really hear somebody talk about a game and that I really feel like, man, I cannot wait to actually play this. This is in so many different ways so super exciting. So I think I can speak for a lot of people when I just tell, like, great job. Thank you for what you are building for Web3.
Thanks for what you do. I've seen your channel. You grind heavily with so many different videos. So look, we absolutely appreciate the work that the content creators do in this space. I know you guys have a lot of people talk about, oh, you've just built in a bear market for the last 2 years. But you know what? I shed a tear for the content creators that just did constant promotion, constant videos in the bear market. Everyone's viewership was here, and it ended up in the ground. And so, I think things are about to get crazy for you guys as well. Your followers and your subscribers should start to come up. So I really appreciate you sticking around and doing what you do, and I would love to come back on again.
Yes, I would love it too. Yeah, I quit my job and I had a kid on the way, and a week later the bear market came. So for me, it was a grind, and I think that we all deserve it. So everybody that's contributing, it will be all right. And crypto gaming, like you said, it's really early. I love to see Illuvium grow. So thanks for being here, and let's do this again very soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, and have a lovely day, man.
No worries. I'll see you later, dude. Bye.
Take care.